I think sometimes people can become complacent. They come into work, they do their job, and they leave. And they're not telling people like, hey, I want to learn more. I want to grow. I want to do X, Y, and Z. Because for me, if someone came to me and I try to do this with my team, if you have like excitement or you want to learn something else, I'm going to do my best to make sure that you're navigating in that realm a little bit, or at least learning in some form of, but I can't help you if you don't tell me.
What up, though, Black Fridays family, and welcome back to another installment of the Black Fridays podcast. And if you can pay attention to the background behind me, you might be able to guess who I might be in the building with today. I'm actually here with some real legitimate ballers, some people who are making waves and making changes with the Detroit Pistons. I'm here with the VP of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Stephen Welch, and also the Director of Social Media, Mr. Major Taylor. How y'all fellas doing today?
What up, though?
You doing good, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I'm happy to be in the presence of greatness right now. So it's always good to see you two brothers. And I wanted to, if I can, jump right in. Wanted to start with Stephen and talk about if you could explain to us, because I think that this is an often misconstrued concept in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And if you could just break that down to what does that exactly mean? Because I think a lot of organizations and people understand some parts of it, but not all of it.
Yeah, and thanks a lot, Denzel. I appreciate the question. For the most part, when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's an opportunity for us to examine where we have chances to create access to that opportunity, and then examine also where we have those barriers to opportunities and what's causing those barriers. And once we do that, we're able to find ways to develop talent, we're able to find ways to engage talent, to attract and acquire talent, right? And so for us, from a team standpoint, when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what that means for us, is that we want to make sure that we're continuing to engage and develop our team members, our staff, because we know when people feel as though that they have a voice, they're more productive. When they feel as though that they're being engaged and they're learning, they're more likely to stay. So that's a business imperative, right? And then also, not only do we want to be attractful, right? There's a lot of companies that talk about being attractive and attracting talent, right? But we want to be even more bullish and acquire talent, right? So attract and acquire diverse talent. And then also, we know that we have a huge opportunity and a huge privilege because we get a chance to spend a lot. And examining where we spend our dollars, right, and making sure that we have an opportunity to drive economic impact, especially within the city of Detroit, especially with small businesses, minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, and the list goes on. We want to make sure that we're identifying ways that we can do that as well too. And ultimately, when we do that, we can continue to find ways to build and sustain the trust that we have in the communities that we serve and represent.
Super dope. And I wanted to ask Major, in terms of somebody who is helping put these initiatives, these different programs and things that the Pistons are involved in the community, in and around the world of sports, what is it like being able to broadcast those things from a digital media perspective? So like websites, social media, all that type of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing this for a while now, and I can say this is the first time that I'm able to do it at the scale that we've done it. And a lot of that could be attributed to you. A lot of that could be attributed to the people that we've hired within the Pistons. And for us, it's just nice to go places and to be a part of events that you know is coming back to the community that you're from. And a lot of people don't get to do that. I would say very little people get to do that on the everyday.
100%.
But to really say, like, I'm Detroit born and raised, you're Detroit born and raised, you're Detroit born and raised, and to say that we work at a company and we get to be a part of some activities and initiatives that actually support Detroit. And yes, Metro Detroit, but Detroit, I think that's one of the reasons why I decided to come back here.
And then growing up for all of us, it's from my understanding, I know the Pistons have always been active in the greater Detroit community, like different things. I remember going to like turkey drives that they might do, or different local activities that they would have, and they were very intentional about that. But the energy was different. It was different because they were, number one, out in Auburn Hills, and then also maybe you didn't have as many Detroiters or people like of and from the community actually working within the organization. Do y'all kind of feel that shift also?
Oh, most definitely. I will say that the Pistons have always been involved in the city of Detroit to some capacity, but being in the city of Detroit, we know we have a huge responsibility as a corporate citizen to be even more engaged. It's funny, when Aaron Tellum, who's our vice chairman, of course he was a super agent, right? And so he had been to the Palace before. But when he became vice chair, he had finally gone to the palace during the day. And he looked around, and no offense to our friends in Auburn Hills, it was just like, why are we playing out here?
Mm-hmm.
We're so far away from the city core. We as a team should be in the city of Detroit. And so he came up with this grand vision that our ownership bought into. And now we're back in the city of Detroit, opened up this facility in 2019, the Henry Ford Pistons Performance Center. When we opened up this facility, there was a lot of planning that took place prior to with the community. We knew that we wanted it to be a community hub. Most NBA facilities, you don't necessarily get that, right? Mm-hmm. They don't want you in. If you get in, you ain't getting out, right? And so we wanted to be a community hub. And so some of the things that we heard from community members were, one, we needed a place where we can go and exercise and work out. Fitness Works, which used to be in the neighborhood, closed. And so that's the reason why we have a Planet Fitness here. It's not because we said we wanted it. We also have a Plum Market here. That's not because we said it needed to be here, because the community said they needed an additional space where they can go and find and get fresh food, which is awesome. So we've done a lot of just engagement and research and conversations with a ton of folks just to get that feedback and how we can continue to be authentically Detroit.
Yeah, and I worked in the Auburn Hills. I worked at the Palace, and it was a great building. I loved it. But when you're starting to talk about people in the community, a lot of times the issue isn't that we don't want to go, it's the resources. Do we have transportation? Do we have the finances to go to track up to Auburn Hills and then come all the way back? So just being a part of the city, you just see more diversity. You see more of the people that actually are Detroiters in the area or in the building.
For sure. So I'm going to take a pause in the questions right now so I can introduce y'all to my favorite part of Black Fridays, which is Freestyle Fridays. And so, Stefan, I know you came out with a mixtape back in the 90s, right? If I'm not mistaken.
We played every Friday.
So, I mean, if you want to, you got some rhymes for us, some poems, however you want to kind of break it down.
I'm a huge Jay fan, and my wife is a huge Jay fan as well. And so I remember at our wedding reception, I had the band play an instrumental public service announcement, Jay-Z's PSA, but I catered it towards her. Wow. And so, it's funny, my wife is from Pontiac, and at one part of the song, he says, "Flyer in a piece of paper bearing my name, I got the hottest chick in the game wearing my chain." So I flipped it, and I said, "Sweeter than the juice that's bearing my name." Well, you got that.
Oh, you were going crazy.
Okay.
You were going crazy.
Oh, I was joking. We really got to put it on. We got to put it on next Friday.
Sweeter than the juice that's bearing my name, I got the hottest chick in the yak wearing my ring. And so, I remember at that moment, the crowd just it was literally like I was in 8 Mile. So that's probably some of my most frequent memories when it comes to my freestyle moments.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And we used to try to get Major freestyle back in the day. He refused.
Not rapping.
Yeah, he refused. And as you can see today, he still refuses. So Freestyle Friday is a random assortment of questions. They all about y'all, so you shouldn't get them wrong. So I will start with this should be a layup. Who's your favorite Piston all the time?
Ben Wallace.
It's a tie. Can I give a tie? Or I have to make a decision?
You got to make a decision.
I'm going to go with the Worm. Dennis, the Warren Rodman.
X Factor for the Bad Boys team.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to go with Zeke. Growing up, it was Ben Wallace, but then as I started to dig deeper into the history prior to me being old enough to watch basketball, I'm like, Isaiah Thomas was that guy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Honorable mention was Richard Hamilton. I was going back and forth. That was that pause. Because when it was actually happening, Richard Hamilton was.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be Richard Hamilton.
Yeah.
I got to get my mid range jumper on point to be Richard Hamilton. But now I think.
I remember that series against the Lakers. They couldn't do anything with him. He was just going around those corners, off the screens. They couldn't do anything with him. Of course, Chauncey got the MVP, but like you said, Rip was an X factor that series.
But even the mic'd up with Reggie Miller. When Reggie, you remember that?
Yep.
And they it's like Reggie Miller was just like, dog. He like me. I'm not chasing him. Right.
Yeah, Reggie out there needing a ventilator.
Exactly.
Reggie almost 40 at that point, and he got to chase Rip Hamilton around. It's it was not happening.
Yeah.
So we just had the draft in the city. So I think about all the people who came in town, and I'm wondering, what's your favorite kind of like hidden gems or favorite spots in Detroit that you would kind of like recommend to somebody if you had to pick one that came to mind?
Ooh, I'm going to be biased. One, I'm on the board of the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, so I got to put that out there. Other than two, the Motown Museum. We actually, in February for Black History Month, we took our staff there to just get a glimpse of what it was like during that time for Motown, get that history. But then also, Motown is probably the most famous black startup ever, right? And they were able to do things from a standpoint that were very innovative. And I thought it connected to a lot of the work that we do within the organization.
Yeah.
Fire.
I'm going to plug the Detroit Historical Museum. Right now, if you go, the Pistons have a museum that is the 3520 Museum. So it celebrates the 35-year anniversary of the 89 championship team and the 20th year anniversary of the 04 team. So very solid. It's up until, I believe, July. So please check that out if you haven't. But that was a very great answer. I immediately thought food. So I went Savannah Blue. There we go. I was like, if you want some oxtail and some greens and some risotto, cheesy risotto rice, I mean, go to Savannah Blue.
Yeah, there you go.
100%.
And it's a hidden gem, I think.
Most definitely. What do you all do when you're not working? So like, what's kind of like your thing? What's your zen place or a hobby that you have?
Ooh, it's a good question. I love anything that connects to music, right? So if I'm at if I'm at a concert, something like that, that's my thing. That's when I'm in my zone right there. Growing up, I thought I was going to be Michael Jackson's drummer. That didn't happen. But I am a drummer, and so I love being around live music.
I was like, do you actually play the drum?
Yeah. Played at my church from age 9 to 37.
If you was the church drummer, you're a legit drummer.
But you know, some people like, I'm gonna be a background dancer. Like, can you actually dance?
Right.
Got no rhythm. So you got to ask the question sometimes. There you go. For me, and you know this, anything art. And it's the reason why I think art was my first love, and it's the reason why I loved it so much. It brought me so much peace. Is the reason why I didn't want to do it as a career, because I wanted to keep it separate from having to do it for monetary value.
So that means you'll do a piece for me for free?
As long as you don't stress them out.
It's like you can give me like 2 years. Like, I promise you, within that time frame, I got you.
Favorite car?
Ooh,
I'm not a car person.
Favorite car? I'm a Cadillac person. I would probably say the new Cadillac Lyric. That, and then also, I'm trying to see if I made a mistake because we have sponsors.
I think whatever your answer, whatever your answer is my answer.
This interview did not reflect the views of the Detroit Pistons.
We do have sponsors.
I was like,
You know, there's always a thing called editing as well, you know.
No, we're good.
Yeah, okay.
It meets the luxury value. I forgot. There's
For
some language there we can play with.
Okay.
I'll be real with you. I'm not a vehicle person, so I'm gonna just go with his answer.
Cool.
There we go.
All right. Can't go wrong with that. And last but not least, is there anything that you are reading, listening to that you would recommend to people?
Ooh.
We actually have an author coming here pretty soon for Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. His name is Curtis Chin. Curtis is from Detroit, now lives in New York. His family owned a Chinese restaurant that was in Chinatown, also known as Cass Corridor, Midtown. And his book is called Everything I Learned in the Chinese Restaurant. And it's an amazing book. His book is blowing up right now. So it's great to hear his perspective on Detroit. And then I love, once again, Black Friday podcast. So I would say let's do that.
Great answer.
I'm going to say on BT Plus, there's a show right now called Youre from Detroit.
Fire.
And I think it is one of the better representations of Detroit I've seen, where it's like real places. The commentary is very much, if you're from Detroit, you understand that commentary. You understand the jokes, I think, better than almost any other show. Because there's some shows that is from Detroit, but it's like, you just place this random family here. Yeah. Who are these people?
Yeah.
Right.
I think this is very much Detroit. You can tell she's from Detroit. She has people who's from Detroit as some of the actors within it. Jamel Hill was on it for an episode. It's 8 episodes, really quick. It was something I got into.
Yeah, I mean, I feel as though I just watched the first episode a few days ago, and it had to be like 5 East Side jokes in it.
And I made those same jokes. I have made those jokes.
I also want to give a shout out to Authentically Detroit. It's a great podcast as well, too.
Dope.
Yeah.
Dope. Well, y'all successfully passed Freestyle Fridays. Shout out to y'all for engaging in the randomness. Y'all did a great job. So, if I can go back into my question asking. So, for both of y'all, this is not like doing the work that you do. This is not your first stop in terms of doing it. And I really want to know, what things have you picked up along the way in your journey so far that has contributed to the work that you do? So, like, for example, Stefan, community has always been a focus for you for a long time. Diversity, equity, and inclusion has been a focus for you for a long time. Major, as you mentioned, like having a background in arts and how it played the factor in your work, but like not totally like immersive into the art space. But just wonder, how have these things over the years catered to what you do now?
So it was 2 slightly different questions. I'm going to answer both. So when it comes to art and how that has played a part in my career, that was literally how I got into social media. Was that a social media job became available, and I said, I don't know anything about social media, but what I can do is do graphic design. I can do animation. I can do video. I can do photography. And if you hire me, I will do that for you on the spot as you teach me how to do social media. Because to think about it, like when we age us a little bit, but when we went to college, there was Twitter. No, it was Facebook. Facebook and Twitter.
Facebook and Twitter was the big ones, and Instagram when we graduated.
Instagram was still on iPhones only.
Right.
So like, social media was not something where I was coming out of college. Like now, people come out of college and I'm going to be in social media, man. That was not my career goal. I just wanted to be in marketing in general, and this was the one job that opened up in marketing at the Pistons, and I knew these skills I had in art was the way in. What I've learned along my career is that, especially now that the last few jobs I had is more about being a manager than I would say the actual nitty gritty of the work. Like I'm not the one as much hitting the buttons and hitting send, writing the copy. I don't do that as much. So it's that everyone can't be managed the same way. And I think that's somewhere where I found a lot of people fail, is that they'll manage one person perfectly. And they're like, this is the key, this is the sauce.
Yeah.
This is the sauce. I'm going to do this to everybody. And then when other people start to like struggle with that, I think they're wondering like, well, but everyone said I was perfect. Everyone said this was the perfect way. And I just learned, especially with the people I manage now, is that everyone is so different. Everyone is driven by different things. Everyone wants different type. Some people are driven by promotions and wanting to grow in their career. Some people want stability, but raises. And some people want just recognition. So I've had to learn and meet people halfway and say that I can't manage all 3 or 4 or 5 of you the same way. I have to find very unique paths to each of you.
That's dope.
And let me say, Major's such a dope individual. And I love watching him working. I love how he engages with his team. But I remember it took us a while to find someone for his role. Of course, Major left, started doing some really dope stuff. It was like, yo, we need someone for this director of social media role. And so he applied, of course, got hired, and his team started calling him Major the Savior. And I was like, there's no better compliment than that when like your team is literally seeing you as someone who is that they can put their trust in, someone, a team that feels as though that you are getting the best out of them, you're motivating them. Like Major is an amazing individual. And once again, I love the fact that he's doing that, but I also love the fact that he's doing it as someone who's from Detroit, lived here, never left. And so kudos to you on that. Excuse me, sorry about that.
No.
I would say for me, in my role, I love seeing people succeed at what they want to succeed at. And if there's any way that I can help in that, I love it selfishly. But once again, I can name his team, and each person I've gotten a chance to engage with. The reason why our voice from a DEI standpoint does so well on social media is because his team is so diverse, right? and they want to buy in. They've already bought into that, right? And it's very cool. Most organizations can't get it right. One, because they aren't bought in, and two, they don't have the team to do it that comes from diverse perspectives. So I love that. I love seeing our partnership team succeed. I remember we got the NBA partnership of the year, and Sarah Barnes, who led that initiative for our Shop 313 initiative. I remember she got off the call with the NBA, and I came out of my office. She was coming out of the conference room, and I said, "Did we get it?" And she said, "Yeah." And we just like ran and started high-fiving each other, right? I love that type of experience. It's a great organization where you can see that.
And one thing I'll add is that you do a really good job of making everyone feel comfortable. I think that goes a long way with jobs. When I was here the first time, we didn't have cohorts. We didn't have all of this stuff, and that was a big part of why I even came back. Because if it was the same, I was like, why am I going back to the same? But it was something very much unique. It seemed evolved in a way that a lot of companies still don't do. A lot of companies are still very behind on.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and I think that goes to kind of the culture we talked about a little bit earlier in terms of like how the tide has kind of changed when things, and maybe it was, I'm sure the move had a lot to do with it, but being able to actually be in the city, and then also I'm sure, whoever the powers may be, upper management, whatever the case may be, somebody had to be more intentional about how people got into certain roles and certain spaces, and then also like, maybe how people got looked at even from like a hiring perspective. So with you two both being in managerial roles, I wanted to see if I could steal some career advice from y'all in terms of how people can get the most out of their situation, no matter what role that you have. Everybody has, unless you like the owner or the top guy, everybody has somebody that they answer to. So wondering like, how can you get the most out of the position that you are currently in?
Being honest. I think for a lot of people, I don't want to say a lot of people, but I think sometimes people can become complacent. They come into work, they do their job, and they leave. And they're not telling people like, hey, I want to learn more. I want to grow. I want to do X, Y, and Z. Because for me, if someone came to me and I try to do this with my team, if you have like excitement or you want to learn something else, I'm going to do my best to make sure that you're navigating in that realm a little bit, or at least learning in some form of, but I can't help you if you don't tell me. So that's something, at least for me, I try to always tell people up front, is like, be very open and honest with me about your career choices, especially at the level that I manage. Like, I know you may not be in social media forever, and that's okay. But if you don't tell me that there's other paths you're looking at, I'm just going on in my head like this is your career path moving forward. So for me, it's just, if you be open and honest about it, that's the way to go.
And I think for me is I try to engage and lead from, and I learned this earlier in my career at another stop, is really exploring the idea of yes. Saying yes before no doesn't necessarily mean every idea gets greenlit. But me having a 7-year-old, I've watched a lot of Sesame Street, and I love on Sesame Street, they have this saying, I wonder what if, let's try. So if someone comes to me with an idea and they want to do something, the first thought that I have before I have of no is, I wonder what if, let's try. And I think a lot of times that gets me excited, but I think it gives other people too that I get a chance to engage with. I think it gets them excited as well too, because they're not off the rip being told no.
That's dope. I love both of those answers. And now I'm curious to know, what do you all feel like is missing from the sports realm? And it could be in general, it could be diversity, equity, inclusion. From that standpoint, representation for people that look like us. But just wondering, is there anything that's kind of missing from sports in both of your lanes that we need to see more of?
Ooh, that's a good question. Honestly, I'm not sure. But what I love the fact is that we have this saying called Power Humanity and Basketball for All. And we know that we want to utilize our platform as a professional sports team, specifically in the NBA, where we have a lot of privilege and a huge platform, to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to be extremely invested in the community. Not necessarily to make it better, but to empower it, right? And so this development that we have and this partnership that we have with Henry Ford Health and Michigan State University, no offense to my Wolverines.
All good. All good.
But it's a $3.5 billion investment in this neighborhood from a health equity standpoint, from a health access standpoint, from a medical research standpoint, and deep affordability housing, right? I wonder what it would be like if every professional sports franchise did something like that.
And I agree with that. And the reason that question is so hard is because I've worked at 2 sports teams here in the Lions. I know people that's worked at others. From organization to organization, it's so different. So to say like what I think here is potentially missing, another team might do. And other teams might not have someone in DE&I. So it's really hard to say in one blanket statement, sports is missing this. I just feel like when it comes to the community, I think everyone could be doing a little bit better.
100%. Now, if we could play a little bit in hypothetical. So Detroit we had the playoff run with the Lions, and that kind of shined a light on the city as well. We just hosted the NFL draft, blew the numbers out of the water in terms of viewership and actual attendance, and killed a lot of records there. So it's some rumblings around in terms of potential All-Star games, NHL, NBA.
I haven't heard it rumble.
Something.
I don't even watch TV. What you talking about?
It's hypothetical. You may know more than the average, the common folks like myself. But in a hypothetical situation, what could an NBA All-Star Weekend look like in Detroit? Because I think it would be absolutely phenomenal. Because our people ready. The mink's gonna be out. The buff's gonna be out. The chain's gonna be out. The car's gonna be out. It is gonna be a magical time in the city if that was to happen. But I'm just curious, like, what could that look like? Granted, these other larger scale sporting events that we've seen in the city previously.
You want to take this one first? I will say this. I witnessed the most recent NBA All-Star Weekend in Indianapolis, Indiana. It was amazing. You could see the intentionality. Shout out to our colleagues at the Pacers. I was blown away. And honestly, the dopest things weren't happening on the court. It was what was happening in the community. I watched a pitch competition where, some of the judges were Jalen Rose, 50 Cent, the list goes on. And it was a pitch competition geared towards founders of companies who happen to be from marginalized communities, right? When this sister got up, I said, she is about to win. And she created a mental health app specifically for Black and brown women. And I was like, that's so dope. It's never something like that has never been explored, and it's so needed. I got to see all these different activations in the community, not just downtown, but also in the neighborhoods as well too. And I know if it came to Detroit, if it were to come to Detroit, the evidence is there. We would blow it out of the river. And I said river specifically.
I would just say I think Detroiters deserve it.
Yeah.
I think the city deserves it. It's prime Detroit fashion, like you said, with the minks and everything. So I think whether it happens or not, I think this city has shown and is proven that it should be considered in the top places to go. It should be a top destination.
It's our time, most definitely.
Yeah.
For a lot of different reasons. And we have a newer stadium, newer facilities. So, NBA. I know y'all already been here. I know y'all already had the conversations with Major and Stephen. So I'm
just go on and clip this and send it over to him. Just go on do that.
So when it happens, just know that we talked about it hypothetically here first. So wanted to jump back into kind of like the work that you all do, and I'm curious to know, what would you say is like your favorite thing that gets you up out of the bed to come and do the work that you do every day, and how does that kind of like fuel you? Like what do you love about coming to work and doing the stuff that you do?
Two things. That every day is different. Today, where we have math hoops down there, like, I don't think you come to a job where every day something different happens. Your days are never the same. Like, I love that about the job. It's why when I left sports, I wanted to get back into it. It's because the amount of opportunities, the amount of things that I've been able to do, I've been just blessed and lucky to do it. I would say in my day-to-day, in this part of my career, I really do enjoy helping other people develop in their career. That's my favorite thing to do right now. Is like sometimes I even even beyond myself, I don't think necessarily if someone asked me what I want to do next, I'm like, what do I want to do next? Let me think about it. But I am on top of all the people I manage. Like, yo, what are you trying to do so I can help you get there? Because it's just sometimes you want to be the person that you wish you had. I'm not saying I didn't have it. I had a lot of great people throughout my career, but I want to just be another person that's like, I'm in your corner. I'm going to be advocating for you. And that means I'm also going to be pushing you.
I love the amount of pride that I see people have in the work that they do. I love it. And I think that is what motivates people when times are hard. We can't control everything that happens on the court, but we can control how we show up to work each day. And even when we had a run of losses, and it was tough, you could feel it around the building. People were still trying to find a way to do their best. And I thought that was cool. Externally for me, I would say there was this one time when we were doing an activation during Pride Month on Livernois at Good Cakes and Bakes. And right next door is a beauty shop. And, you know, this more seasoned individual, this woman, one of our seniors, she saw that we were out there. We had Uber out there, had the dancers out there. We were passing out basketballs. And this one lady came out of the beauty salon, and she came up to me and she asked me to sign her basketball. That's and dope. I thought that was so dope. And she said, you know, I'm going to show my grandkids this. And the thing about that is like, yo, you don't have to be a basketball player. You can do something else. You can work in HR. You can work in marketing. You can do all these different things, right? And I'll never forget that moment. No matter where I am, I'll never forget that moment because it took me back to where I was as a kid, where I didn't know anyone who worked for the Pistons. I could go to games every now and again, thanks to my dad's job. But like, you know, when I wanted to do that basketball camp at the Palace of Auburn Hills, my dad was like, "Boy, I gotta go to work." Right? Like, no, that ain't happening. Or, you know, I just didn't know there was a pathway for it to a career within professional sports, specifically Detroit Pistons. Basketball was my first love. And so now that we have that presence here and people can see that, the opportunities are limitless, I believe.
And sometimes you forget that because I've been in sports for 10 years now, and sometimes I forget how cool it is to have this job. Like, to me, it's like an everyday thing. But if you meet someone and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing?" You be like, "Oh, I work director of social for the Pistons." They're like, the way they light up and they're like, "Whoa, you do what?" And they want to talk to you. And then it goes off in my head like, "Oh, this is actually like a really cool thing that we're able to do on a day to day."
And with you saying that, and it just hit me, I think we can be what a different world was for me.
And for me.
And I'm trying not to get emotional when I say that, right? But I'm like, yo, I've never even considered that until you said something that just made me think about that. What was it for me that just made me want to go to college? It was a different world. Yeah. And now, and I remember having a conversation with someone and saying, you know, had it not been for that show, I wouldn't probably have the job that I had. But now, seeing you, having our conversation, Denzel, I've known you for a long time. I think we are that. I think we are what a different world was to us, to younger folks.
That's amazing. And representation definitely matters. That's why I really appreciate the work that both of you do. And then, you know, just being able to show up for, like Major said, show up for the people that you're accountable for in terms of your teams, but then also so many other people, because you all do events, like you said, as young folks down there today, people coming here for different events, like you all host workshops and stuff like that. And just being able to see that representation. We had one of our high school students that we mentor come here last year, and that open up her eyes to see like, oh, wow, like, okay, I have a knack for art. I love doing graphic design. I would like to be able to get paid for my art and stuff like that. And to come to a graphic design workshop and to see like the whole team talking about what they do, how they do it, also having black women representation on that panel as well. She was able to see like, oh, my opportunities are endless. And that's not something that I know we didn't have, like, especially in this space. We didn't know that was like an opportunity. People just think like, oh, well, if you're not the athlete or if you ain't the coach, the owner, it ain't happening. But being able to see, oh, we have all these other opportunities at our disposal, that's what makes a ton of difference. Like you said, to your point, the whole being able to be that representation, that different world, quote unquote, to people who are next up or seeking to get into the space.
For sure.
I was going to ask if you all had any secret sauce for anyone who is interested in getting into sports. It can be a maze to navigate sometimes, because definitely a lot about who you know, opportunities, things like that. But then also your skills bring you to the table as well. But just want to know if you had any tips for people of this is how you can possibly find your way into sports, if that's the route you want to go.
There's no one way. You talk to 5 people here, you're going to get 5 different answers. One thing I would say is pretty consistent is everyone's favorite word, networking. I mean, I got here, when I graduated, I had interns in sports. I had been doing it for 3 years. I thought it would be so easy to get a job, and it wasn't. And the way that I got into this building, or to the Palace, but for the Pistons, was I had to go talk to the CMO at Michigan who seen my work and I had built a relationship with, and I was like, I can't find a job. And he was like, send me your resume. The next day I got a call from the Pistons to be a part of the inside sales team. So it really is sometimes just about who do you know, and any opportunity, do it to the fullest, because you never know who's watching you.
For sure.
You never know who's watching you.
Yeah. I think to add to that is just, being your best self as much as possible, being solution oriented, saying, hey, I see this need for the Detroit Pistons. Okay, what's the solution to it? It can't just be like, hire me. It's like, why should we hire you? I think that happened for me in my role. I was introduced to someone in leadership, and I said, hey, I think I have the skill set that you all need. And we had a couple of conversations. Then the pandemic happened. I started working somewhere else, and then eventually they called me back and said, hey, we want you to come and do this. So sometimes it takes time too as well.
Networking.
1,000%. So what's next for both of you in terms of, work that you can talk about and here, anything that you can let us know about, or, the person in general, any goals, aspirations that you have, would like to put them out there in the Black Friday universe and see them come back later on. So just wanted to know what's on the horizon for you all, what's in your crystal ball.
Okay. I talked about it earlier, the future of health development. That is probably the biggest project I've ever worked on. Even before we came to a decision with the neighborhood advisory committee, before it got passed by city council, before it got passed by the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, we had an entire year and a half of meeting with the community. So over 100 meetings, meeting with over 1,000 residents, right? And so now that we've had all those conversations, now that everything has been improved, now it's the management of that. So that's going to be a huge chunk of my responsibility as well too, because we want to make sure that we continue to have that great credibility that we have in the community. And so just because we've now got those approvals doesn't mean that those conversations stop. We're going to continue to engage with the community. We're going to continue to get feedback. We're going to continue to find and hear ways to make sure that feedback that is given is also heard, right? Because that's the last thing that we want to do is just stop all of that. I think that would be a huge mistake. And the great thing about that is that because I said we have that credibility, since we've been back in the city of Detroit, everything that we said we would do, we've done and probably have gone over and above on. And so we want to make sure that we continue to do that. So I'll be focusing on a lot of that.
For me, a lot of the things I can't talk about, just from a social perspective. But what I will say is that a goal of mine is trying to really figure out how does augmented reality and artificial intelligence continue to live within social, how to grow and develop it. One thing that I got here that I told the whole team is, and this is my first year back. So a lot of this year was just about restructuring, process, all of that. I think this next year for me is about innovation and how do you become the first? How do you stand out? And we dabbled in AR, augmented reality, a little bit this year, and I want to really take it now and really run with it.
That's
I can't tell you exactly what I'm thinking. I have a very specific thought in my head to start it off, but yeah.
That's going to be fire. And for the people watching who play NBA 2K, how can they unlock y'all characters? Can y'all get some songs? What's the cheat code?
I've been ready for this question. So
Just type in Major Taylor.
Right. It might be on the update. You got to update first.
I was playing 2K the other day, and I was getting so frustrated. I was like, I can't remember these releases. I was literally like, dang, I'm getting killed.
I don't even try it.
It's like,
It's a mess.
It's so
a mess.
sophisticated.
Yeah,
It's so-
it's truly like it's become one of them. You could used to just pick up 2K and just play and like get it, but now I've been playing for years and now it's tough for me.
But man, I look at we got a 2K team, the Pistons GT here.
Mm-hmm.
And I watch them, and it turned. I'm like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Like this is too much. They're out there practicing. I'm like, I can't do this.
yeah, Coach Du is the man.
Well, fellas, I appreciate y'all stopping by the podcast today and hosting us in the facility today. I really do love the work that both of you do, admire the things that you do, and appreciate you all as people, and then also, of course, as professionals as well. So I'm grateful for the time today.
We appreciate you as well. I've been watching you for years. I remember when someone reached out to me and was like, yo, it's this kid named Denzel. And I was like, let me meet him. We went and had lunch.
Mm-hmm.
I'm proud of you, brother.
Thank you, man.
Proud of you, man.
Thank you. Likewise.
Yeah, and I've known you way too long, so this is about the end for us.
Yeah.
But it's been a good run. It's been a real good run.
Hey, man, I'm just glad you held on to me this long. All right, y'all. We tapping with y'all soon. Peace.